right, Scott and Kipp, thanks for being here to talk about Rebroken. You both not only wrote the film, but you star in it as well, along a really solid cast of Tobin Bell, Allison Hayslip, and Nisha Okoro. Can you talk about how the idea for Rebroken came about?
Sure. I'll start it off because that's kind of the way it started. Is I always like to say I like to write down these little short stories or things that come into my head. I write them down in these little comp books, and some of them, I never revisit, and then other ones I like get hung up on. And this was one of the stories that I kind of got hung up on. I was like, oh, I like this, and this is interesting, and that's interesting, and I wrote a little a short story, and then if I think they're worth looking at, I'll send it over to Kipp, kick it over to Kipp, who's the brains of the operation and a really talented writer, and I'll send it to him and say, what do you think about this? And then he liked it, and I said, what do you think? Can we turn this into a screenplay? And and then he took it and ran with it, and in a quick amount of time, and he just got going, and he could take it from here because then he did the real hard work. I sent him a short story, gave it to Kipp, and said, let's turn this into a screenplay if you like it, and he liked it, and then he took over.
Very nice.
Yeah. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. And then I took Scott's idea, which was a father going through this anguish of losing his daughter, and spending his days and nights basically just in this fog and drinking himself until he blacks out, and then reliving it over and over. And so I added in the grief counseling group and expanded a bit, and then there was another character in Scott's original story which ended up becoming the Tobin Bell character. So just kind of expanded on that idea, brought in this different world of the grief counseling group, and turned it into, sort of the supernatural, psychological thriller mystery that it is.
Very nice. Were there any films that inspired not only the original idea, but also the script?
Yeah. I know Scott always throws out Memento. It was one that inspired him. Machinist, big fan of Machinist. Those were definitely a couple in there. There's other films like those that I could probably throw on there, but I think those are probably the two that we kind of were inspired the most by. Scott certainly Memento, and I was kind of clinging to the Machinist a bit, and kind of marrying those two.
Absolutely. It's funny. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say, no, that's exactly right. I would always describe it to him as, I have this Memento feel I like about this, and like the same thing over and over, like a Groundhog Day type of thriller. And he always went with the Machinist when we were like kicking stuff back and forth. So that's exactly right.
It's funny because I thought Memento right away when I was watching it. Like halfway through, it hit me that it kind of felt Memento-ish. So
told you, Camp. No, I'm just kidding.
How dare you?
I'm right. You're right. No,
right.
No, that's awesome. Same. But I definitely get the Machinist stuff too. I love that movie as well. And yeah, I don't know why Memento for me, I love that movie. Yeah. And definitely it when I was writing my portion of it, that was definitely a big what was going through my head.
Definitely wanted to retain the puzzle element of both of those films, and the pacing certainly is more, I think, Machinist than it is Memento. But some of the Groundhog Day elements, I think, of Memento is stronger.
So I wanted to ask you about maintaining that puzzle, within the story, because there are a lot of breadcrumbs that are dropped throughout, but then there's a nice, without getting into spoiler territory, surprise kind of at the end where it all comes together and you figure out what's really happening. How do you write a story that kind of engages everyone, but doesn't completely, I guess, throw them off track, but gives them just enough to keep engaged before you deliver the big finale?
I think that the key in writing a film like this is to, if you're confused, the audience is going to be confused. No, it is sometimes trying to keep track of your own script sometimes is a challenge. No, honestly, it's I approach these as just kind of a mystery. Writing a mystery story, a classic mystery story, where it's peeling, to use the cliche, peeling the onion a bit, but in this case, hats off to Kenny Yates, our director, making his directorial debut in this, did an incredible job. there's a lot of scenes in this film that were not written in this order. They were written in quite a different order. Now, it's still, you know, like you said, the breadcrumbs and peeling back the onion different times. But you know, and then I edited the film, and then Kenny got his director's cut, and then he and I kind of sat there, and we just started pulling scenes from the end and putting them, you know, in the third act, putting them in the first act, and vice versa, and just started doing the shuffle. And that really elevated, you know, the mystery element, the puzzle element to it. You know, there are certainly, one of the things that we did was we made Lydia the first act, the Lydia character in first act.
Yeah.
You know, whereas before it was sprinkled out throughout the film. So in basically writing a film like this, you have to know that in editing you are going to be rearranging until you find the right tone and the right way into the story. So I knew that going in, that we were going to have a lot of liberty in the editing process. But you know, that's part of the fun. You know, you write your script, and then once you get into editing, you know, you're really going to make the film then, when you're in post.
Excellent. It's really interesting watching a film like this. You know, there's a supernatural element in a way, or you're expecting that. But the puzzle piece of it, when that reveal happens, it really is impactful. So kudos to you guys for, you know, taking the time to structure the film in a way that keeps you engaged, but then can pull off that big reveal. You mentioned Kenny Yates. You know, what was it like working with, you know, handing off your baby in a sense? You wrote this project, you're handing it off, and I guess, Scott, starting with you because it was your original idea. You know, was it more of a collaborative process, or how did that all work out?
Yeah, we did a little movie a couple of years back that Kipp directed and wrote, a little micro budget kind of slash thriller slash horror called Evil at the Door. And Kipp directed it. And they just hired me. I was just an actor on it. And Kenny was there as the crew. And I don't know what he was originally hired for, but the guy was doing everything. And, you know, he was the assistant director, and he also was like the best boy. He was everywhere doing everything, and and he was just smart, man. He was, you know, if it was a lighting question, he knew it. If it was a camera question, he knew it. If it was a story question, he knew it. He's script supervising too. So when it came time for this, I originally thought that Kipp was going to direct it. But Kipp, to his credit, has been so busy. He's been getting hired nonstop to produce some pretty big stuff. And so he wanted to do this film. We had a short time window to do it in between everyone else's other projects. So Kipp was like, I don't think I can put the time into act and directing it and produce it. I think the directing got to hand off to somebody. And I go, well, who are we going to get? Just like you said, to trust with our baby. And I remember thinking, man, that Kenny guy was so talented. Kipp was like, oh yeah. Like Kipp was like, yeah, I think he'd be great. And I think he does have aspirations to direct. And I said, we should let him take a swing at this if he likes it, and let's sit down. So we called him, we set up a lunch date for the three of us to just sit around and talk about it. And we loved everything that he said, and he was so eager and fired up. And I don't know, I just felt like I knew he was going to do a good job. I felt, but even if he didn't, I knew I was going to get 100% effort out of him. So I was happy to hand it off to him. And I think Kipp knows him much better than I did. Well, now we all know each other pretty damn well, but before he was like Kipp's contact, which I just got to work with once and loved him.
Yeah, I've done I think 13 films with Kenny now. Yeah, quite a few. And so I met him. He came in to fill in for someone on a film 3.5, almost 4 years ago. And he'd been producing. He worked in the AD world. And going back to Evil at the Door, Kenny was a producer on that, but just kind of filled in and did everything. He was a producer and director of photography, and also one of the actors, but just literally did everything else. And he had been mentioning that his aspirations was to direct a feature soon, and now he's got 2 under his belt. We did another one recently in December.
Very nice.
Yeah,
he's a name to watch. Then we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for him.
That's right.
I mentioned earlier horror legend Tobin Bell co-stars in this film. What did his involvement mean for the project? Any good stories from working with him?
Go ahead, Kipp. You can start.
The total pro. the nicest guy in the world, but also just a professional. But the way it came about is, I'd done a film with him that he just came on for, I mean, literally a day. Just short amount of time we had him on set. A film that we had done, I guess, February 2021. And so I got to know his manager, and when we were kicking around ideas, we had anybody and everybody on the list of people that we were thinking about for this role. Originally the role was written as female, and then we kind of went the other direction with it. And I don't know really, Scott, how we came across the thought of reaching out to Tobin, but it was like, hey, reach out to Kate, his manager, and credit to her for making it happen. And having him on set was, he's one of those guys that he elevates everyone around him, but also just could not be more down to earth. And just having him involved in the film, it's a bucket list situation, but also, we got him at a really nice time right before he started getting too busy for us again, with the Saw franchise again.
Diving
so
back in.
It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, when we were going through the casting, and we were like, man, we really we'd love to get some type of name or strong presence for this part, and if we could find a way to get that in budget, and then you have a wish list, and then you start to get people's rates, and start to get to see if you can get even people interested enough to read the script and come on. And then I think it was originally that Kipp, I did know that you had him on the movie, that one that you're talking about, where you just had him for a day, and we kind of put him in the pile because I was like, and I like the Saw movies, and I know him obviously from the Saw movies, but for me, I was like, Tobin Bell, I love from In the Line of Fire, and I love from Mississippi Burning and The Firm, and I just saw even Seinfeld. I was a Seinfeld honk, and I know his episode of Seinfeld, and I'm like, if we could get him, do you think we could get him? And he's like, yeah, I still have a relationship with the manager. We could take a swing at it. I said, let's send the script and send it over and just see, because that would be pretty amazing. So for me, like as a fanboy kind of thing, and just the fact that I knew I'd be getting to do scenes with him, and still new to the producing game. This was number 3 for me. And I was like, oh my God, you think we could really get him? And I remember a couple of days of pins and needles. If we get him, that'd be pretty cool. He'd be perfect for this. I would love that. And then when we got the yes, he likes the script and he's available, I was so excited. And then to meet him first, yeah, you're like, all right, Jigsaw's coming to set. He's coming to set. He's right. He's this not only incredibly talented actor, but also he's just the presence in all these movies, especially when he's playing the bad guy, is so intimidating.
Yeah.
And then he just walks up with his baseball hat. And we start talking baseball for 20 minutes and going over stuff. And like Kipp said, total pro and totally friendly, and just total pro by the fact that this was not a big budget movie. And he came in 100% prepared, 100% ready to go. And we couldn't have asked for more than we got from him.
Yeah, incredible actor. He definitely, I think, elevates everything that he's in, and it's really, Scott, the scenes that you have with him as well are really great. I mean, there's not too many of them, but he's just in those moments. You can definitely feel the impact of the core themes of the story, the grief, and it really pushes your character forward, I think, and really towards the end reveal, what we end up seeing.
You're so right. He levels everything up, and and he brought more. I knew I had to be ready to go. I needed to have my A game, and he's just so amazing. And then, like you said, I mean, trust me, we would have loved to have him every single day and made that part even bigger if we could have. But we used him as much as we possibly could, and he did such a fantastic job, and it was such a great part for him. And couldn't be happier, and so thankful and grateful that he came on board.
Yeah, absolutely impactful, and even the short time that I'm sure you guys had him, that's incredible. Before we wrap up, guys, what do you hope that audiences take away from Rebroken? That's always a question I like to ask, because there's so many themes at play, especially in this film. But at the end of the day, what do you hope people walk away from this with?
Honestly, number one, you want someone just to have an enjoyable time, and enjoy the movie, but also, without being too heavy-handed with it, one of the goals, and that Scott and I are both, fathers of girls. You know, he has a daughter. I have 3 daughters. Scott now has a son as well. But you know, one of the things that we did want to touch on, and at least you know, maybe give people something to think about, is dealing with grief and dealing with loss, and that process and that journey that it might take you on. Obviously, in this situation, you know, we built a psychological thriller and supernatural thriller out of it, but you know, that is something that we had conversations about, and I did a pretty extensive deep dive into the process of grief and recovering. You know, again, not to get too heavy-handed with it, but that is something that we did have extensive conversations about, and it would be good to, you know, give people maybe give them some pause and something to think about.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at it as two ways. As in the heavy stuff, sure, I think the underlying theme can be that everybody deals with grief differently in real life. So if you can identify with that, and you know, some people have trouble accepting it, some people are really good about being strong and moving on and finding the positivity and like the circle of life and things like that, and other people, I mean, it can take them down for the count. And everyone, I think that's the underlying theme if you're really into getting heavy with it. And then on the movie side, it's a fun, it can be, if you look at it this way, as a fun puzzle to try and figure out an unraveling little mystery to get your popcorn and see what happens and go, how is this going to end? What is going to happen? Or what? It's hard to say without
try to guess the ending.
But try and figure out, stick with it, check it out, and try and figure out, if you're a person who likes to try and figure out endings, not trick endings, but surprise endings or twist endings. This is a movie for you too, man. Hang in there and see if you figured it out when you get to the end.
Yeah.
Scott, quite the salesman there for Rebroken. So hopefully everyone that's watching will check it out next week when it hits. I'm excited for everyone to see and go along for the ride, because it is quite a fun film. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time today. I wish you the best moving forward and the best with the film.
Great.
Thanks so
Joe.
much.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having us.